Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.
Track 2 or track 55 if you're a player. Okay?
Yeah. Table of Contents, parts 1 and 2. I guess produced by Questlove. Flat 6.
7 minus. Okay? 7 minus. We haven't gone past the 7 minus yet. And I have a lot to say about this one.
Please, take it away.
You hear this like record static, and then it sounds like the band's starting to warm up. Black Thought opens, and he has this kind of like vocal effect on. It's like a CB radio kind of effect.
It's almost this lo-fi filter on the whole track. Like the vocals, the beat. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, so on his portion, at least, his vocals are kind of obscured. I've had mixed feelings about that for as long as I've heard this album. It feels a bit insular for an intro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not very inviting. The music is really dirty sounding. I dig the groove once Kamal's keys come in. I think that really sets everything off. And I think Thought raps well, you know, and as far as like MCing goes, this is where I like really had to do some soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's truly an MC in the actual sense of the word. Move the crowd, right? Like I've seen the Roots go for 2.5, 3 hours, and this man does not miss a word. He does not miss a beat. His breath control is elite. His presence on the mic is very strong. You know, he's a guy who like takes the art of rapping very seriously.
Yeah.
At no point on this album would I ever ding him for bad rapping. Although I will say, compared to some of his counterparts, I'm not going to call him one-dimensional because he's not. He has other modes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say he's fully three-dimensional for me. He's like somewhat two-dimensional when it comes to like lyrical content and especially conveying emotion. Like, I think this verse sums that up pretty well. There's nothing bad about it. He sounds good. You know, even with that kind of vocal effect over his voice, I can still make out what he's saying. He's always in the pocket. And he's just, you know, that said, kind of just doing his usual routine. He raps about rap a lot. The art of rapping, how good he is at rapping, the Roots crew, and, you know, their place in rap. He raps about the streets of South Philly a lot. You know, he'll tell stories sometimes. So I'm not going to say he's totally one-dimensional, but, you know, it's not like if you've heard one Black Thought verse, you've heard them all. And, you know, You Got Me, which we'll get to obviously later on, as an example of that for starters. But I think the reputation that Thought has garnered as one of the GOATs came from people seeing him live. Because, dude, I've seen them probably over a dozen times at this point. Mm-hmm. And while I don't have him in my personal top 5 or top 10 MCs on record, as far as if you ask me who my favorite rappers are, I'm not going to scoff at anyone who would put him on their GOAT list. Because as far as, like, live performance, he's easily number 1 or number 2 next to Big Daddy Kane. Like,
okay,
he's elite as a live performer. I do think, however, the contributions of the Roots, like the band, and not just the band, but, like, some of the other players as well, Malik B, Dice Raw, Saeed, you know, people that have been brought in to share some verses with Black Thought on these albums, you know, have contributed to these albums as well. And I feel like it's somewhat downplayed at times that, like, you know, people for years were talking about, if only Black Thought would go solo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he has. We've gotten 3 Streams of Thought albums. He just did this album with El Michaels Affair. He did an album with Danger Mouse. Like, he's been pretty active as a solo artist. I don't think the music's any better. In fact, I think it's worse than the Roots music. And
be careful what you wish for. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Roots in any way were holding him back. If anything, they were giving him something that I would say is like a unique musical backdrop and direction, and albums that are a little more like conceptually driven than, you know, what we've been getting from Black Thought thus far as a solo artist. And I feel like without the Roots, and I'm not saying this to insult any of these guys, I think they're all good rappers, but like without the Roots, would Black Thought have just potentially been another AZ, Cannabis, Royce da 5'9"? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he's a great rapper, and as I was saying, as a live performer, I wouldn't even hesitate to call him like the best in rap, doing rap music live.
It's just
but I don't know, man.
On
like
record.
On record, I feel like sometimes I fail to connect with him emotionally because he's so workmanlike.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes his lyrical content can be, you know, like you kind of get like one of 3 style verses from him.
It's either rapping about rap, storytelling,
yes,
or I would say like battle rap, or just, you know, sort of like getting your
shit that's
off,
what
like,
I call like the gritty streets of South Philly rap that he does.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, I don't mean that as an insult either. I mean, I'm just trying to give some credence to the argument here that he is the GOAT and that he isn't at the same time. And look, on this song, he raps his ass off for like a minute and a half before the verse starts to fade out. He doesn't stop rapping. He's clearly very skilled. But I'm thinking to myself, like, is it the effect on his voice? Or am I just lacking this ability to connect with him emotionally on some of this, even though it's obviously like, if you were just asking me to give technical notes, I'd be like, yeah, 9 out of 10, like in the Olympics, like raise the big number 9 and over my head and say like, great work, great rapping, you know?
In this specific record,
I don't know. There's
will
like
say his rapping is done an injustice by the effect, personally.
I don't disagree with you. I was saying like, there is something that feels like to kick off the album like this, I don't know if you've earned that kind of goodwill yet to have his voice obscured in such a way, especially because now we can get to the second half of this. When the beat changes and Malik B's portion comes in, his voice is not obscured by this kind of megaphone effect or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now, there is a problem, though, that I have on that part of the song. It's not with Malik B. I feel like the mix of that beat that comes in, that second beat, number one, I don't like the beat as much. It's a lot more conventional sounding. It feels like Questlove just really in his like Slum Village fantastic bag, wanting to channel that sound a little bit. And, you know, Malik B, I'm going to say this. He's not going in for the kill with his verse like Black Thought, but I feel like his approach, while less technical, has more personality and allows the bars to land more because he's slowing down and working a hold, if you will. So I kind of miss this group dynamic. Malik B is not on Phrenology at all. And there's a song about why on there. And then by the time they get around, he's not on Tipping Point either. Then by the time they get around to doing Game Theory, he's back, but only on a couple songs. And, you know, his role is never, this is the last album where his role is somewhat significant.
Mm-hmm.
And I just miss this dynamic. I miss having like Black Thought verses broken up by Malik B verses sometimes, just as an aside. But yeah, I don't like the beat as much. I feel like the beat is mixed weirdly. Like there's something about the high end on it that sounds a bit off to me. So I have mixed feelings overall, and I feel like it kind of translates to some of my overall feelings about this album in some respects. And I just had to get it out now as far as like where I personally hold Black Thought. Like maybe my favorite and maybe the best hip hop live performer of all time, but I don't think he's on my top 10 MCs list.
Okay. That's fair.
Even if I'm trying to be objective. I still feel like 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 is more fair, given the fact that, like, you know, I do have a couple notes on him as a rapper, you know?
Right.
And, like, you know, Jesse loves hating Common, right? Like, that's his thing on this show is, like, Common sucks. And, like, bro, Black Thought is a better rapper than Common by, like, all technical metrics. But Common just makes me feel emotions more than Black Thought does. Even though he's maybe a little clunkier at rapping, he manages to convey sentiments that I relate to more. I don't know. It's just, you know, and sometimes it just comes down to the music, man.
I respect all that.
So I want to know about your opinion because, you know, you gave this a flat 6 and, you know, I don't know your thoughts on Black Thought and where you hold him as, you know, a rapper. I do know you asked me this week, is the Black Thought thing like a recent thing as far as people holding him in this level of esteem?
Well, him being in the GOAT conversation or proposed is like, is he the GOAT?
Yes.
You know?
But no, I've been hearing this on rap forums since the early 2000s. So this has been like a 20-year, not even debate. Most people agree that he is, it seems.
Okay. I guess, I mean, I asked because, one, I'm younger. So, I wouldn't have been around on those forums. You know, I was alive, but like I wasn't on those forums. But 2, it felt like, I mean, even discourse,
at one point Biggie was given Thought props in an interview or whatever, right?
Really?
Like,
okay. It felt like that proposition was coinciding with like these radio freestyles and like these like streams of consciousness projects that were coming out. Like it seemed like it was ramping up in preparation for his solo
freestyle.
Yeah,
on right. Flex. He had that freestyle on Funk Flex that was, admittedly a great freestyle, and razor sharp. Just like he that's where you can rap for 10 minutes and not miss a beat. That's true MCing. You know what I mean? I'll never tell someone no, he's not. Like it's the same thing with like Jadakiss. Like I love Jada. I don't personally have him in my top 10, but that's more discography related than anything else. And like if someone put Jada in their top 5 or their top 10, I'd never argue with them about it. It's the same with Black Thought. It's like totally reasonable to me.
It's the classic case of undoubtedly elite MC without an elite album or an elite catalog.
Well, that's Jada. Now with Black Thought, the Roots have several amazing albums.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just saying solo, but yeah.
And as a live performer, I have no issues whatsoever. Like I said, he may be the best, but my thing with Black Thought is sometimes I find him redundant and sometimes I think that I fail to connect to him emotionally. And I think that matters. Like, move the crowd, right? Like, to be moved is not just to move in a physical sense, but is to be moved in an emotional sense.
Yeah, I think I said something like that before, on a record, in fact. That damn story of rap, or story of OJ. But yeah, this whole master of ceremonies things, it's multifaceted. It truly is.
Yeah.
And it's why and it's there's open to debate everybody.
And interpretation. There is no objective truth here. I love the debate of greatest MC. I hope it continues. I hope, future generations continue to argue over who's the best in a skill sense, not based on accomplishments.
I just hope that they argue about it with the proper context and
language,
ideally qualifications.
Context.
But yeah, it's like,
sure.
Set the parameters.
Let's get back
Whenever you
to-
have these discussions, you have to set the parameters. It's why we have the rating system, and it is the way it is. It's because we want you to know what we're working off of for these conversations to make sense. It's the problem with a lot of these conversations. You'll see these tweets, and it's just this is actually not a tangent, but like, you know, who's always discussed like nonstop. Was ad nauseum Kanye. Every week it's a rank his albums. What are his greatest beats? Now I will say, just Kanye posts are very cynical to me these days, because I think these people understand that's just free engagement at this point. Like, you can't possibly still be talking about him because you care that much about ranking his albums and beats or whatever. Like, I feel like they know just as much as he does that the discourse will never die, is all it is. So, you know, talking about him is going to get you something. But the issue with these conversations is like, we're not setting parameters. It's like, okay, best album according to what? Like, amount of songs you like impactfulness, sales. Like, what are we talking about? You know, we need a rubric. We need a key. We need a guideline. You know,
that's the problem with the best MC debates in general, is that, you know, some person could be arguing someone is the best off of consistency of releases or technical skill or success or whatever other metric. And there's so many different GOATs if you think about it that way. Yeah. So Black Thought could be the GOAT, but not of in-studio rapping, in my opinion. It would be of live performance, which is a massive accomplishment to have under your belt. So, you know, not to say that is any disrespect, but I want your take, Mel. Like, what is your feel of Black Thought, like, as someone who didn't grow up listening to the Roots and weren't even aware of this quote-unquote GOAT status until several years ago? I know you've heard some of his solo records.
Yeah, actually, what was I think Conception? That was one of my favorite records of 2018. But I will tell you, that project I didn't actually care for that much. But that record on there was great.
Yeah, that song with the Marvin Gaye sample, great record. I didn't love that album, man. I like 3 or 4 songs on it. Like, I like the Roots albums better by and large than the Black Thought albums so far.
You know, I'll tell you this, like I said, the past 5 or 6 years, it felt like, oh, these conversations were being had because he was ramping up to go solo, or rather his ramping up to go solo was perhaps based on these like rumblings. It's like, you know, is he the GOAT? But you say they've been having these contemplations for many, many years. So I kind of paid more attention to him when I started seeing these conversations, and
people, like I said, people always said he was nice. Like Biggie said he was nice. The Source made one of his verses, you know, like the verse of the month, the hip hop quotable or whatever it was. Like, they had been getting their due in some regard, even though in some regard they were also slept on commercially, right? Like, it's not like they were just a total, you know, like, hidden gem that nobody knew about. They were getting, you know, we'll play something that they were on the David Letterman show for this album. So, like, they were around, they were on a label, you know? It was the GOAT conversation, though, I feel like, once people really got a feel for their live show. I mean, look, Jay booked them to be his band for that Unplugged.
Right. Yeah.
You know, people were going to see the Roots live, and Black Thought is just an incredible frontman.
You know, I think, and this isn't a commentary on Black Thought so much as just the way these affairs are discussed now. It's never enough anymore. It's like this overcorrection. It's never enough for somebody to just have always been nice. They have to take like, oh yeah, he's nice, into, you know, is he the GOAT? It's this like give them their flowers era that we're living in, where it's just like, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, he doesn't have to be the GOAT. He can just be nice. You know, it takes a lot to be a nice MC. That's no thing to scoff at. But like, everybody that's nice can't just be inserted into the GOAT conversation, you know, just to have something to talk about, or just because you know, it's always weird when I see these conversations. But like, I was seeing them, I was consuming these freestyles, and I'm like, oh yeah, he is nice. Now, granted, I didn't have enough familiarity with the Roots catalog or hadn't heard any solo material at that point, so I was never entertaining it. I was just seeing what all the hype was about, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's a great rapper, great, but hearing this album now, sort of, I guess, in, you call this the prime of the Roots, maybe.
You could say that, yeah.
Yeah, my opinion is, I mean, we got a whole album to do, but in this song specifically, yeah, there's a lot of rapping about rap, but to be fair, it's pretty good in this track. When he's like, I stretch the limits of this profession, my voice physically fit, tracks I'm bench pressing, the mic cord is an extension of my intestine. Delicate MC sliced in my delicatessen.
Bro. He's not going to get caught slipping out here. That's one thing you're not going to be able to do, is say, oh man, he took this review off and phoned it in. Or I'm sorry, he took this song off and phoned it in, right? Or this verse off. Like, he's, as I was saying earlier, extremely workmanlike in that sense, And when Black Thought comes, he comes to deliver. But that doesn't mean that it might not be lacking a little bit of, like, maybe it's a little, I don't want to say unseasoned, but like, I feel like, it lacks a little bit of emotional resonance, almost like a machine rapping extremely well.
Yeah. And I mean,
right? We can talk about his verse on Act 2 later on, Love of My Life, where it's like, he does bring that emotional resonance across, but just not nearly enough for me.
I think much like Jadakiss, is like, you can make the argument that you've never heard a bad verse from him. He's never gonna mail it in. He's always gonna come correct because he has pride in himself as an MC. So I'll say it right now, there are no bad verses from him on this album. Like, there isn't a single verse where I'm like, bad verses that's weak there, like,
from anyone really. I mean, everyone pulls their weight in some sense, right? Like, of MCing, whether it's what Black Thought is doing on his verse here, Malik B taking a different approach, but I still think succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, I'll explain why the rapping doesn't work when it doesn't work for me, but I'm saying right now, it doesn't work because it's bad rapping. You're not going to hear that from me tonight. But yeah, in this specific
record,
fine.
Like, for it not to work for you and it being bad are two totally different things. And sometimes they can be the same, right? Where it's, I thought this was bad rapping, and that's why it didn't work for me. And sometimes this is good rapping, but the music let it down, like you were saying on the Locks album that we did last season.
Yeah.
And sometimes shit just doesn't click, and there's no real, like, science behind it. It's
other
just,
than,
you know, my
prerogative. You. Sometimes it's just not for you.
It just doesn't
mean
grab
anything
you.
To you. I mean, hey, speaking of, like, yeah, I think Black Thought is pretty great on here. I think the rapping is sort of done injustice by the intentional lo-fi mix, but when it switches to the second beat, which I also like a lot less, in fact, like, it's not even a bad beat. I just once it switches, I end up missing that character and, like, that artistic choice made in the other beat, like panning the drums to the left.
It throws it off.
It's different. Like,
and I miss those keys. Those keys really made that whole thing perfect. That dun, 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 dun. A lot of character that it brought to the music in the first half.
We switched from, like, that sort of off-kilter, staticky, lo-fi thing to this sort of HD. In Malik B, I'm getting less out of the rapping. Now, listen, to be clear, this is not me saying, oh, Black Thought greater than Malik B. It's only the first record. Just like we were just discussing, less arresting raps for me. They just mean less to me. So, flat 6 because...
Did you get more personality from him, though? Just in the fact that he was delivering the bars at, like, a little bit of a slower pace?
No, it was about the same for me. It was about the same. It's just...
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it connected less because I don't like the beat as much, but overall, like, I like the first beat.
I definitely don't like the beat as much.
Yeah, I like the first beat. I'm kind of on the fence about the way Black Thought's vocals are mixed. I don't like the second beat, and I don't really care about what Malik B's rapping about. So that's how you end up with the flat 6, because it's like there's nothing.
You get the 7 minus with me because I do like Malik B on here, but I pretty much agree with everything else you just said. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my thoughts. I had a lot to say about this one. Don't usually have this much to say about something, but I had to wrestle with where Black Thought falls in my own pantheon. For me, personally, which shouldn't affect anybody else. But this also goes into what we're going to start hearing on the next song, which is these live renditions of songs from this album. And, you know, my realization that The Roots Come Alive is perhaps my, you know, preferred outlet for songs from Things Fall Apart that appear on The Roots Come Alive, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Like, songs from this album, by and large, sound better on the live album to me.
Okay.
We'll start to hear that as we move into the next song. The next movement, if you will.
Yeah, well, before we move on, I just want to acknowledge, you know, I guess the sequencing of this track coming out of that intro, because we discussed, like, that sort of commentary on, you know, artistic intent and reception to that intent. And I feel like they kind of spoke through this track as far as where they lie in that argument, because it's like you just went from somebody saying, you know, stop being #artistic and just play music that people want to like. And then the first choice they make is this sort of lo-fi, let's pan the drums to the left, like, and put a filter on the voice. It's like, hey, they chose to be fearless artists. And ultimately, I'm not going to like everything. You don't get that. Like automatic points.
I never
for
really
doing
looked
that.
at it like that. I like that, actually. I like that interpretation.
Yeah, I felt like it's like, you know, they set it up to be like, all right, we're gonna make a choice here. Like, it's either we're playing to the lowest common denominator, and we're gonna do what we want to do with our art.
At the same time, I think if you didn't obscure Black Thought's vocals and everything else was exactly the same, I don't think that
it'd be normal.
It would have made it's still not like it's 1999. Rap records that are popular don't really sound like this. So,
you're saying it would still be a risk either way. Well, yeah, I mean, this is not commercial hip hop. It's sort of alternative.
I think you'd be kind of making that decision one way or another. I don't think adding a weird vocal filter to the first guy who raps on the song is ultimately driving that point home well enough.
Well, I mean,
I like the
weirder
song,
than
7-.
It's weirder than the filter is just the choice to, like, pan it all the drums to the left. Like, I like that kind of stuff. Like, that's, you know, it's a choice.
Hey,
but, you know,
that's the Questlove, you know, magic, basically. That's like he's taking his album making brain, and, you know, sometimes that can veer into self-indulgent territory, and sometimes that could lead to some real, you know, sonic brilliance, if you will.
Which is
Those
why I
crickets
say
are fucking cricketing, man.
Oh, they're cricketing. Maybe the noise gate will take it out. I don't know. But I mean, they're not supposed to cricket all night, right? Like, don't they go to sleep? Don't crickets go to sleep? Like, what are we? Is it just the
they say the sound of gentrification is silence, and it sounds like Mel is following in the footsteps of his heroes, Steph Curry and CM Punk, and he just wants to be a damn NIMBY landlord, man. And Tom Holland, I think he's trying to build a brand. He's going to build a brand behind my back with Tom Holland, who he's been pretending to hate this whole time. The ultimate swerve. If Mel turns on me and, like, Tom Holland is like takes off the mask at the end, and, like, he's the guy that was, like, secretly attacking me in the back for weeks. Him and Mel, you know, listen, ain't no match.
You know what?
Okay?
I just figured out what this all is. It's a long game by Tom. Okay. I know what this is. Like that British boy Central C. I know what this is. He's talking about, you know, how can I do gentrification? My bitch is black. That's what this is. He's only with Zendaya, so he looks like an ally while he does his landlording and gentrification. Okay?
And I heard him say, he just said, the first Spider-Verse movie is the best Spider-Man movie ever. Yeah, keep saying the right thing, buddy. We're on to you, okay?
Right. Yeah. I'm Googling this cricket thing. I don't know. I guess they're gonna fucking do this, but noise gate, please. Okay. What's the phrase?
That noise gate.
Jesus be a noise gate.
Be cricket phobic.
Right. Okay. How can I be cricket phobic? Okay. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, right, okay. Final thought is, listen, I'm always gonna appreciate fearless artistry. Doesn't mean I'm gonna like everything you do just because you're fearless, but I will always appreciate you being steadfast in your vision. Be what you want to be as an artist above anything else. You know.
Fuck off.
Actually, did you notice at the beginning of the record, somebody was like, they burped and they were like, "Excuse me." Did you notice that?
Oh no, it's not. No, it's not a burp. It's art. He's saying art, like it's carried over from the last track.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Play.
Hold on, where's the record? Because I heard a burp. That nigga burped. Okay, hold on. I don't think it was
art.
Quest.
He's like, because it's no, it's Harry Allen, the hip hop activist.
No, it's like it's not right up top. You'll hear it. Here, let me.
Oh, okay.
Is this fast or normal speed?
Oh. Did you hear
it? Yeah, listen, we know who that is, okay?
Quest, come on, man. All right. Anyway, yeah, you want to move on?
We can move on.
Okay.
Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.